Simon Bush, CEO with the AIIA, and welcome to My Security TV, and it's great to be here at the National Press Club in Canberra with AU Cloud, AU Cyber, and you've just come back from a delegation to Washington, I understand, as well. We're going to have a quick chat on what your observations are. You've been consulting with Department of Home Affairs on new cybersecurity legislation. Maybe just to cover off on your observations with the new cybersecurity bill coming through, your consultation with government, how much government's been consulting with you, and maybe just general advice to your members at the moment in relation to cybersecurity and uplift.
Yeah, great. Look, we've been working very closely with the Department of Home Affairs around the cybersecurity strategy, and now the legislation that implements this strategy in the shields for quite some time. They've been very cooperative in working with industry and organisations like the AIIA. So very thankful for the consultative and transparent approach. It's really been an approach that they've embraced because they want to work with the industry. They understand we have a lot to offer. They require industry to support the intent of the policy. So we weren't surprised when we saw the draft. In fact, we were given an exposure draft before it was public. That's the level of trust that the AIIA and Home Affairs has, which is fantastic, and we really appreciate their approach. But on balance, we support everything they're trying to do, uplifting cyber security and resilience right across the entire economy. We understand where the government's going from having those deep conversations with them. We don't necessarily agree on everything, but we get a really clear understanding of where they want to go, and look, they've responded to our concerns in a positive way, and that's reflected in the legislation.
Well, maybe on that is, we don't want to fall into the compliance nature of cybersecurity. What are some of the pain points that you're hearing back from members in relation to cyber? And obviously, the numbers are saying that the cyber attacks are occurring. Ransomware is still getting paid. But businesses, they still seem to struggle. What are some of the key sort of feedback you get?
The main issue that concern we have is sort of from a high level around cyber regulation and legislation is the reporting requirements are standard and consistent across different pieces of legislation and different pieces of regulation. So you've got your Privacy Act, you've got your Cybersecurity SOCI-SONS Act, you've got your national e-safety sort of pieces of work that goes on there. Different reporting timeframes, different reporting requirements on a cyber and data breach. So aligning all of those sorts of requirements and definitions are really, really important. It makes our industry's job a hell of a lot easier to interpret what's required and when.
One thing I have noticed is you've been making submissions to government. So that consultation, do you find businesses ready in terms of the new cybersecurity bill? And one of the other things that was discussed today was workforce. Are you hearing anything back from your members in terms of getting the right people within the business to manage cybersecurity?
Look, I think it's patchy in terms of ready for the new legislation. Obviously, the legislation hasn't been enacted yet. So I think the ones who are engaged in the sector know. The ones who don't, obviously, got some work to do and need to be educated and brought up to speed. In terms of workforce management and skills, our own data and own research shows that we have a lack of cybersecurity people within the IT industry. So it is probably the biggest area of skill shortage that exists within the IT sector remains cybersecurity experts.
The other one is, while we're talking about all this, we've got the advent and emergence of AI and the adoption of AI, and as you say, this year we've started to see the use cases come through. Do you find that adds another layer of complexity for business? They've got to remain competitive, yet now this legislation's starting to come through and just the burden on business to stay ahead, whereas also cover the back door as well, so to speak.
Yeah, look, it's challenging for business leaders, absolutely. There's this new wave of really is a generational AI, but it's a generational technology change. It is a step change improvement for productivity benefits in organisations. And you're seeing some big Australian companies really leaning in and being very public about their adoption of AI. Telstra and CommBank in particular. You're starting to see the government starting to embrace generational AI and large language models and starting to see the benefits of those. We've got a GDP growth problem in our economy. We've got net GDP is negative 1.5%. So without public sector spending and immigration, we're in recession essentially as an economy. AI is part of that solution to drive productivity. So we need to embrace it. I think at the end of the day, if your competitor's starting to use it, that tends to crystallise leadership and go, well, if we don't do it, then our competitors will get a leg up. So I think commercial, competitive juices will flow and lead to investments. And but look, it's early days in Australia. The use cases are still early days, and people are sort of walking before they run.
One last one is one of the recent reports came out. They're saving up to an hour a day using some AI tools. One of the questions was, what are they going to do with the extra hour? What are some of the expectations that business have? Is it just a matter of creating that workforce to be not just more efficient, but now they have to be more productive as well? What's the kind of the ideas
I
around
think
that?
leaders need to sort of have an understanding if there's a productivity benefit, what do they do with that extra time? I think a really good example of the productivity benefit software engineers when they're using ChatGPT, they are 30% more efficient based upon a number of pilots, including the Commonwealth Bank. So they are now able to free that time up from that, that sort of rudimentary, low-hanging fruit sort of task. They can then apply that. And what I'd like to see is that innovation take over. So it gives more time for critical thinking and for innovation, and creating more value in their business. And I'd like to see that AI can free up from those sort of low-level tasks, create more productivity, but lead to greater innovation, which is what we need as an economy.
Absolutely. Well, Simon Bush, the CEO with the Australian Information Industry Association, really at the forefront. You're the peak industry body, but a very interesting time to be CEO of the AIIA for sure. But thank you very much for being here at the National Press Club and joining us on My Security TV.
My pleasure. Thank you.